Late game itemization in Dota 2 can often feel like an impossible task. There's a myriad of spells being thrown around and a bunch of item cooldowns causing endless counterplay in every engagement. If you've ever felt lost or confused as to what you should be buying in the late game and want an item to cut through a lot of the noise, you don't want to skip this video. What's going on, gamers? It's Village here from Beneath the Veil and welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to spend some time breaking down one of the most misunderstood and underutilized late game items, the Nullifier. For those players who truly understand the game, the Nullifier can often be the perfect purchase to totally shut down an enemy team's strategy. While there are 19 different item effects and 47 hero skill effects that Nullifier can shut down, there's really only a handful of items and hero effects we think should be your indicators that Nullifier is the correct purchase. In general, you want to purchase Nullifier in games where you can cast the active on a hero and then kill them within the 5-second window that they are being dispelled. Against elusive lineups or when playing into certain supports that do way too much damage and have one or two items in particular protecting them from dying, Nullifier is usually the perfect answer to give you the window you need to take them out of a fight. With all that said, what exactly does Nullifier do? When we look at Nullifier, we can see a few things. Firstly, it gives us a huge jump in damage at 75 damage, as well as giving 10 armor and 6 HP regen. Due to the prohibitive cost and the stats gained being attack damage and HP sustain, this is nearly exclusively an itemization choice for core heroes. However, there can be times in ridiculously long games where a support might consider getting this item as well. What I want to focus on today is the active, called Nullify. As you can see, the active dispels the target and applies a debuff for 5 seconds. This debuff continually dispels the target. Since the cooldown of the active is 10 seconds and the effect lasts for 5 seconds, we say that this item has a 50% uptime, as if chain cast off cooldown, it is active 50% of the time. This active effect requires no mana to cast, which is also very important to note. Do take note that the dispel type is a basic dispel. This is important for considering that if any skill was only dispellable by strong dispels, Nullifier would not be able to dispel it. As it stands, there are currently no spells which buff or protect a hero that require a strong dispel to remove, but it's good to know should that change. Take care to always check spell and item breakdowns and make note of whether or not they have dispellable effects, and whether that requires just a basic dispel or a strong dispel. Also note that Nullifier can be cast on invulnerable units. However, the note here on piercing magic immunity is outdated since magic immunity was replaced by debuff immunity in 7.33. We'll touch on this in a moment once we've broken down the items Nullifier works against. In saying that, let's jump into how Nullifier counters other itemization choices. As stated earlier, there are 19 different items that Nullifier can remove the effects of. While not all of them are the most helpful, it's important to recognize just how versatile this item can be. Starting from the most impactful, we have Aeon Disc. Being able to remove the 2.5 seconds of complete damage immunity is incredibly important for a lot of high-impact teamfight support heroes that rely on this item to not be instantly killed. There are also instances where a core hero might pick up Aeon Disc to be able to survive a burst long enough to counter-initiate or disengage, so it's always a worthwhile consideration. Down the same vein, Glimmer Cape is also dispellable if you're having issues locking down the enemy team and they have supports who are constantly putting Glimmer Capes on whoever you're trying to kill. You can also look to a Nullifier to remove this effect as well. Enemies leveraging the ethereal state against you through use of Ghost Scepters or Ethereal Blades can also have the effect purged by Nullifier. While this usually means you need some sort of dispel for yourself, usually in the form of BKB, to avoid having yourself turned ethereal, if the enemy tried to use the ethereal state in a defensive manner, you can use Nullify to purge it from them and auto-attack them to death. Yule's Scepter of Divinity and Wind Waker are both items that are rising in popularity in the current meta. The disruptive power of these items is incredibly good, as well as the fact that they are a dispel that can be used both offensively and defensively. Nullifier, however, will instantly return a hero to the ground who has been put up in the air by themselves, an ally, or even an enemy. So if you know you can kill a certain hero and don't want an ally of yours accidentally saving them with the Yules, you can look to Nullifier to try and ease some of that chaos that these two items can cause. Force Staff is pretty straightforward. A hero who has the Force Staff active used on them while under the effects of Nullify will only move about 100 units. This is similar to a hero who uses the active of Hurricane Pike to move themselves or an ally out of harm. Keep in mind though, if an enemy uses their Hurricane Pike against you, the unique effect of that interaction will not be dispelled, so you will still be pushed the full distance away from each other. While these are the major effects we would consider it worthwhile to purchase Nullifier to deal with, we'll also cover all the other item effects that can be dispelled for the sake of education. For right-click focused heroes who are having Crimson Guard leveraged against them, the active barrier of Crimson Guard is dispellable, so it can be worthwhile to look to Nullifier to also dispel this effect if there are other good items or spells to dispel as well. It is worth noting though, that the active barrier from Pipe of Insight is not dispellable, so spell damage based heroes can't look to Nullifier in the same way to deal with Pipe. If the enemy team are constantly kiting you in and out of fights with active effects that boost movement speed like Disperser, Swift Blink, Drums of Endurance, and Boots of Bearing, and it's important you keep a certain hero from getting in or out, all of these effects are dispellable and can aid in keeping a target relatively locked in place so you can stay on top of them or keep them away from you depending on your needs. Similarly, barrier effects like Pervice and Solar Crest, as well as the static charge active from Mjolnir, are all purgeable by Nullifier. It can be helpful in mitigating their protection and reducing their damage output. The healing effects of Urn of Shadows and Spirit Vessel can also be dispelled, though we'd never look to Nullifier to deal with these items. And lastly, the Berserk active of Mask of Madness is also a dispellable effect. Though this isn't an item we'd look to Nullifier to hard counter, it can be good to know that this effect can be dispelled when we consider some of the hero skills that can be dispelled as well. It is helpful to keep in mind that as part of removing the active effect of Berserk, you do also remove the 8 armor penalty and the silence that comes with the activation of the item. As mentioned earlier, as of 7.33, Nullifier has had a change in its interaction with Black King Bar. Now, due to Black King Bar providing debuff immunity instead of magic immunity, BKB will effectively suppress the effect of Nullifier until it wears off, meaning that if you cast Nullifier on a target and they activate a BKB, they can continue to get the full value out of spells that otherwise would have been dispelled. It's also worth keeping in mind that since Nullifier has a projectile associated with the active, it can be disjointed by Blink Daggers as well as be absorbed by Lincoln Sphere or reflected by Lotus Orb. To try and counteract this and create some counterplay, it's generally advised that heroes who like to buy this item, such as Ursa, also have something like a Blink Dagger so they can quickly arrive within melee range and have the projectile be active for as small a window as possible. With all of that said, let's jump into how Nullifier can provide hard counters, some solid counterplay, or otherwise some nice utilitarian purges for certain heroes. As you can see, there's a total of 44 heroes who have skills that Nullifier presents some ability to work against. For the sake of this video's length, we won't go over every interaction, but we will have them all listed in the description below should there be one you would like to know about that we won't cover. Most of these interactions work similarly to the items we discussed, such as Sladar's Guardian Sprint and Hoodwink's Scurry actives, both being dispellable in the same way movement speed boosting items are dispellable. In the same vein, heroes with skills which provide barrier effects or armor buffs can have them dispelled in the same way that items like Solar Crest and Crimson Guard can be dispelled. A unique category is heroes who have right-click buffs which can be dispelled. Nature's Prophet receives a damage increase buff for attacks off the back of using an aggressive teleport. These buffed attacks can be dispelled. In the same vein, Elder Titan's attack damage and movement speed buff through his Astral Spirit returning to him can also be removed. While a lot of these heroes' abilities wouldn't necessarily predicate the need for Nullifier to be purchased, it can be nice to know there's some added benefit should you get Nullifier in games that these heroes are present. The 3 heroes who have abilities granted through their Aghanim Scepter or Aghanim Shard that can be dispelled provide some good knowledge and counterplay in the niche situations where the players playing those heroes look to leverage those abilities. Since Leshrak's Nihilism turns himself and all enemies around him ethereal, dispelling the effect on Leshrak also releases all of his enemies of the ethereal state as well, which hard counters the 4.2k investment if he purchased the item himself. Do keep in mind there is a half-second linger state on the ethereal, so you won't be able to attack him straight away after having dispelled him. Similarly, when Timbersaw invests in an Aghanim Scepter, the barrier can be dispelled and will explode for the amount of damage it has built up to that point. Since the damage builds up faster the more heroes that are around Timbersaw, it becomes a catch-22 for the player whether they want to stay out of the fight for a max duration nuke at the lowest damage output, or to go in and get damage built up more quickly but risk it being dispelled early. If the Timbersaw you're playing against has Gondiel's Scepter anyway, it can be a situationally nice pickup against the hero. Clockwork's playstyle in the later stages of the game usually revolves around hookshotting onto a hero, trapping them in cogs, and then using his shard ability Jetpack to disengage and letting another hero deal to the hero trapped in cogs. With a Nullifier, you can bring Clockwork back down to earth and punish him for such an aggressive ult. As we focus on the heroes in which Nullifier presents strong counterplay against, it's important to note that these heroes won't be outright countered by the item, but instead just heavily neutered in their impact by having Nullifier leveraged against them. Starting with Primal Beast, his Onslaught can be dispelled to stop him short, similar to the way Force Stuff is. This can be great if the enemy is trying to use Onslaught to escape, but it's much more difficult if it's being used to initiate onto you. When looking at a hero like Legion Commander, the attack speed bonus from Overwhelming Odds and movement speed and HP regen from Press the Attack can both be dispelled by Nullifier. Similarly for Ursa, constantly dispelling Ursa means that any activation of Overpower is immediately removed and slows down the hero's ability to increase Fury Swipe stacks to deal more damage. Against Sniper, putting a Nullifier on him while Take Aim is active will remove the buff and reduce headshots chance to proc back down to 40%, rather than the 100% chance he gets while take aim is active. Though this is the most helpful aspect, it's also helpful to remember that the active of Mask of Madness is also dispelled by Nullifier. So if a sniper is activating take aim and then using Mask of Madness to keep someone disabled from range, a dispel on him can be one of the ways to hinder his long range impact to then close the gap and kill him, though he still has plenty of opportunities to create distance with his concussive grenade shard and an aggressive hurricane pike usage. Against Darkseer, half of his base abilities are removed by Nullifier. Since Iron Shell has a 9-second cooldown, it's feasible that a player with a sharp eye can nearly permanently dispel whatever heroes or creeps Darkseer is buffing with Iron Shell. It's also worth mentioning that Darkseer's most prominent form of disengage in Surge is also dispellable. So if a player finds themselves too deep and tries to leave with Surge, being dispelled at the wrong time ends up in them feeding. Although Brewmaster's oppressiveness is mainly tied to his ultimate Primal Split, there's a lot to be said for just how much work Cinderbrew does for him. As the active buff multiplies the effectiveness of his passive Drunken Brawler variants, a well-timed dispel can really cripple the hero and nerf his ability to either deal large amounts of damage through his Fire Brawler, absorb a lot of magical and physical damage through his Earth Brawler, provide status resist through his Void Brawler, or to be very elusive with 100% evasion through his Storm Brawler. Dispelling the Cinderbrew active can often be what's needed to force out a defensive Primal Split in order to keep the hero alive, at which point you can then reset and look to then kill him once the ultimate duration is ended. Grimstroke has a plethora of abilities to control fights, but the most powerful spell in its arsenal for that is Inkswell. As of 7.34, Grimstroke is now able to detonate Inkswell at will to ensure maximum possible damage and stun duration before a hero leaves the range of the stun. For this reason, Nullifier can be an essential piece of counterplay against Grimstroke. The moment a nullified target has Inkswell applied to them, the spell is immediately dispelled and a tiny mini-stun is applied. If a target has Inkswell on them and then has a Nullifier applied, the spell will be dispelled and detonate with the damage and duration it would have as if it were manually detonated at that point. This provides great counterplay should a hero run out under the Inkswell buff and then have it dispelled while out in no man's land, ready for your team to immediately counter-initiate and punish. It's high levels of counterplay, but it can be just what you need to win an engagement. While Oracle is heralded for his protective powers through his ultimate False Promise, it's the synergy of his other spells which makes him truly dangerous and gives his ultimate such potency. While you can't remove the ultimate itself, you can remove all of the positive buffs that Oracle usually tries to leverage to ensure his teammate lives to the end of the ultimate. By applying Nullifier to a hero under False Promise, you remove Oracle's ability to grant a hero 100% magic resistance, and also continually dispel all of the healing buffs of Purifying Flames that usually follow the initial magic damage. As a result, you can often find that coordinated damage from your team can easily counteract all of the utility that Oracle pumps into his ally to keep them alive. While Abaddon is currently known for his cancerous right-click build focused around Curse of Avernus, it's helpful to know that a Aphotic Shield is dispellable. For this reason, it can be an ideal counterplay to wait until Abaddon casts Shield on himself or an ally, then immediately dispel it and nuke him down until his ultimate borrow time activates. At that point, you need to simply kite him and avoid dealing damage to help him heal, and once 6 seconds has passed and the ultimate duration has subsided, you can then nuke him down and kill him. Should he place a Aphotic Shield over himself again, you simply just dispel it and kill him. It's why when a hero like Oracle is in meta, that Abaddon generally isn't. The capability to immediately dispel the shield, especially in the first few levels, is absolutely crippling to his gameplay. Stepping into the Hard Counters group, this is a small pool of heroes where if you see them in your game, their presence alone is justification to buy a Nullifier. These heroes get absolutely obliterated by having one skill of theirs dispelled. While Omni Knight has gained notoriety for his core build focusing around dealing pure damage with Hammer of Purity, the capacity to grant an ally total immunity to physical damage for up to 7 seconds at a time can be totally broken against the right team compositions. Omni Knight's Guardian Angel is hard countered by Nullifier. Completely purging one of his strongest skills makes him far less potent on the battlefield and is often what ends up with a team rolling right over him. While Windranger's ultimate is what deals all of her damage and we can't look to Nullifier to deal with that, Nullifier completely counters her ability to disengage or kite through Windrun as it's a dispellable effect. Though we mentioned Slardar and Hoodwink's movement abilities earlier in the video, Windranger's Windrun is so much more potent due to its 100% evasion and capability to also grant invisibility when she gets an Aghanim Scepter. It becomes a truly cancerous ability, and the capability to completely remove it from play and leave her stuck in the middle of a battlefield with no way to leave ends up with her feeding in the majority of cases. Pugna has always been a difficult hero to deal with. The low cooldown, high damage, and the various outplays able to be achieved with his kit make him a menace, and his abuse of the ethereal state through Decrepifier make him a constant thorn in the side to deal with. Pugna is a hero where a BKB is the first nail in his coffin, and then a Nullifier outright buries him. The capacity to first dispel yourself with BKB means that he then has to decrepify himself in order to continue surviving when you go to kill him, as he should be being focused first wherever possible. However, if there is a more deadly target you have to deal with first, you can always nullify them so that Pugna cannot decrepify his ally before pumping them full of health with life drain. Lastly, the most important hero to buy Nullifier against, Necrophos. Necro is a hero who thrives on living as long as possible during the course of a fight. The longer he lives, the more health you lose through his Heartstopper aura, which causes damage to you equal to 2.4% of your max HP pool per second. Getting more health isn't an answer to this hero, as his damage scales with your health, so the only ways to truly deal with him is to kill him more rapidly. As counterplay to this, he frequently abuses his second skill Ghost Shroud, which puts him in the ethereal state so you can't hit him. Then, he'll also look to his shard ability Death Seeker to disjoint, move around the fight, and buy time while he's vulnerable for another cast of Ghost Shroud. Often, Yule's Scepter and Wind Waker are picked up to add even more elusiveness and survivability to max out the damage that Heartstopper aura is doing, or while buying time for another round of Ghost Shroud. While you can't dispel the Death Seeker, you can dispel Ghost Shroud and any other item that Necro might look to employ in order to avoid taking damage. Nullifier is the quintessential counter to Necrophos, as it keeps him on the ground and able to be attacked. So long as you can attack him, he generally melts pretty quickly. General strategy once you have a Nullifier is to force out the Death Seeker and then immediately nullify him and dogpile the hero to instantly kill him. From there, a ton of pressure on the fight is relieved and you can take your time picking apart the rest of the enemy team. Dota 2 is a complicated game. The longer it goes, the more moving parts come into play, and the more nuanced every decision gets. Though Nullifier isn't the perfect pickup in every game, we'd encourage you to think more critically about the item and if it might be the perfect answer for your next match. If there's any interactions you think we missed, please let us know in the comments below, as well as if there's any items you'd like us to cover in future videos. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like and consider subscribing to our channel if you haven't already. Good luck and happy gaming.